Alright guys, now that we have gone through how to physically set this thing up and make all the little changes to kind of lock everything down inside and make it to where it's a little bit more robust and things aren't going to break off or get chopped off, what I want to do is go through what it takes to get Betaflight, the newest version of Betaflight, flashed on here, and to go ahead and set up Betaflight for the Wizard. Stay tuned. Alright, the first thing we need to do is remove these screws right here. So, because what we need to do is to get to the boot pads on the flight controller. We need to get to these in order to put the flight controller into boot mode in order to be able to accept a newer firmware. Alright, now that we've got this off of here, let's go ahead and just pull our receiver off of the flight controller here. What we're looking at here, we go all the way in, there are these pads right here. The silk screen says boot, and so these two pads, we need to get jumped. And we can do that with just a little bit of wire. This doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can just take a small piece of wire. We're going to strip both ends off. We're not going to solder or anything like that. We're just going to take both of these ends. Let's make sure those are twisted tight so I don't get all hung up on myself here. There we go. And with this wire, we're just going to go ahead and put this into both of those through pads. There we go. And so we're going to walk over to the computer there and plug this into USB, and we'll get started. Okay, the first thing we need to do is download two tools, Betaflight Configurator and BL Heli Suite, or BL Heli Configurator. So I just did a quick Google search here. We're going to head on out to this configurator in the Chrome store. And we're going to add that to Chrome. Alright, now we see that there. We're also going to head back here and we can do a search for BL Heli. And we're going to add that to Chrome as well. Alright, once we've got these installed, what I've done is I've just plugged in to USB the drone with the boot pin in. That way this is in boot mode. And what we're going to do is just fire up Betaflight. With Betaflight running, the first thing we're going to do is head on over to the firmware flasher. We're going to choose the SP Racing F3. There's a lot of others. Make sure this is the one you chose. We don't want any of these other ones. And then let's, just for giggles, let's show the unstable releases and head on over to 3.2.1. Just to make sure that we don't have any compatibility problems, we want to do a full chip erase when we do this. And then what we want to click is load firmware, and that's going to go ahead and download the firmware, and it's going to tell you a bunch of stuff here in case you're interested. We're just going to click flash firmware. Oh, no connection from the bootloader. Now this can be a little funny on the SP Racing chips. So we just have to try some things. In fact, I'm even going to try unplugging this. And plugging it back in and see what that does. Looks like we got a good connection here. There we go. Now while this is occurring, what you can do is remove that jumper from the boot pins. We shouldn't need that anymore. This is going to go ahead and flash the latest version of Betaflight onto the flight controller. And what it's going to do when it's finished flashing and verifying is it's going to reboot the flight controller with the new firmware on it. Now on these boards, the verify does not always go successfully, so if it doesn't, don't worry about it. Now at this point, we can go ahead, I'm going to click auto connect because we're going to be doing a lot of stuff, and we can just hit connect, and this should get us connected to Betaflight. Beautiful. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start rocking this thing around, because if I recall right, we have to set some orientation items here in Betaflight. But let's follow along, because what just happened when we did this, and it happens whether you click full chip erase or not, is it has erased all the settings. Let's put this in expert mode. Once this is flashed, what we want to do is head up into the ports, and we're going to set the serial RX on UART3, on UART3. Hit save and reboot. And once your link comes back, we're going to go to configuration. We're going to make sure that this is set to a quad X. Motor direction is not reversed. We're going to set 4K gyro update frequency and a 2K PID loop frequency update. We're going to make sure our accelerometer is turned on and that our barometer and magnometer are turned off. You can set the camera degrees to 15. This isn't going to drive any behavior on the quad that we're going to set up, but it's a point of reference. The receiver, we're going to make sure that it's serial based and that we have it set to iBus because that's FlySky's version of S-Bus. We're going to keep telemetry turned on, anti-gravity and dynamic filter. Everything else should be turned off. And then down here in the beeper configuration, you can turn everything off. I like to keep system init turned on, but after that, I like to keep everything turned off. Then I'm going to hop back up here. We do want our SSI turned on. Our maximum arm angle we want set to 180. We shouldn't need any trim here, accelerometer, pitch, and roll trim. We'll come back to that. We need our board and sensor alignment set, so we need to set our gyro to clockwise 180 degrees and our accelerometer to clockwise 180 degrees. And then last, we're going to use one-shot 42. It's actually the fastest of the one-shots. We are going to set to disarm the motors regardless of throttle value when ARM is configured via an aux channel. I'm going to set the min throttle to 1040, max to 1990, and then our minimum command set to 1000. Okay, with everything plugged in, heading down to making sure that your receiver is set to serial and that your provider is iBus, you should now be able to go to the receiver tab. And while your remote is on, this is what you should see moving the sticks around. Moving some of the switches. I'm not seeing much there, which tells me we still have to set our switch assignments in the remote. So we'll hop over in a second and do that. So here in the PID tuning tab, let's go ahead and set our RC rate to 0.78 and our super rate to 0.72 to give us a maximum degrees per second of 557. This is less than 2 full rotations per second. which should be more than sufficient for what we're doing. I want you to take your D-weight set point and let's take it up to about 2. I'm using my arrows to get it just right. And then let's also take our D set point transition and let's take that down to like 0.6. And let's start there. Set our anti-gravity gain to 3, and the threshold at 350 is fine. And let's save. Now, we are not going to change anything with the filters for now. This is fine for learning. We're not going to try to burn this thing up or get it fighting itself. And we're going to hit save. And then we're going to go set up some switches. All right. With our remote turned on, we're going to hold OK to get into the menu. And we're going to go to Setup. Now, let's head down to aux channels. Right now, we have channel 5 set to this potentiometer up here, and channel 6 set to the other potentiometer, and we're not going to use those potentiometers at all. So what we want to do, let's say channel 5 is set to switch A, and let's hit OK, and we'll go down to channel 6 and let's set it to switch C. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this the ARM switch. Could make this one, either way. Tell you what, let's do that. Let's keep the big switches. Now I'm holding OK. Oh, holding cancel to actually save the changes. When I come back in, let's set this again to switch B. There we go. So this 2-way is going to be our ARM switch. This 3-way is going to allow us to switch between modes. And again, once we get these set, we're going to hold cancel to save those changes. Okay. Now with our auxiliary switches set, we can see when we flip this, aux1 is our ARM switch, aux2 is our 3-way switch. So now we're going to go ahead into modes. And we're going to add a range for ARM, set it to aux1, and basically with it down here in the off position, you can see it flipping with this little yellow bar. We're going to have it disarmed. When we flip it up, we want it to arm, so we're going to move this up to encompass the 2000 range of this switch. Now what this means is when the switch is in its up position, it's disarmed. We're going to flip it down to arm, which works out really good because it's really easy to throw your thumb up and to disarm this. It's also a requirement in the transmitter itself to have all switches in the up position before it will allow transmission to start. Now let's turn on angle horizon, and when we scroll down, we're going to find air mode. Now, this is one I am going to be right there with everybody else, and I'm going to tell you, we're going to set all 3 of those to aux2. You need to be flying in acro mode. I know everybody's going to start, oh, it's hard, and I crash, and I tore up some props, and all these other things. We need to be flying in air mode. So here in air mode, we're going to make it to where the standard default position is air mode. And then we're going to set angle mode to the center of the stick, or the middle position. And then let's go ahead and also set horizon mode to all the way down in position 3. All right, so once we have these 3 set, let's go ahead and click save. And once we do that, you should be able to start using your ARM switch, and when you arm, your motors come on. Before then, they do not. You can move those sticks anywhere, you can set anything any different way. Okay. And now we're going to talk failsafe. What we want to do is set this minimum pulse width on our throttle channel to 885, so it's fine set right there where it is. We want to take our arm channel and set it to 1100. Basically anything less than 2000 is fine. Okay, we don't need to turn on stage 2 yet. Let's just keep this stage 1. Let's save and reboot. Alright, now to set up the failsafe, we're going to go back into our system menu under RX setup, and we're going to set the failsafe. Now by default, all of these are turned off. What I'm going to do is take channel 3, I'm going to turn it on, and negative 97% is fine. I'm also going to turn on channel 5, which is our arming switch. Okay? And that's going to be set to negative 100%. What that means is that the quad itself is going to disarm if it loses a link to this transmitter. So let's hold and save, or hold cancel to save. And we can go all the way back to the main menu. And what we're going to do here, go ahead and pull this thing up. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we kind of have this thing sitting here. We're going to arm it, turn the switch off, and you see the motor stop. Means if it can't get a link to this, these don't run. That's what you want. Armed. Turn the remote off. Disarmed. Boom.